in Portland. Known as a paradise of flowers and ornamental plants, there is a gardener named Mike, with skilled hands and a heart full of passion. Mike has dedicated most of his time to caring for his garden, nurturing his vibrant flowers, and transforming his yard into a symphony of colors. As spring arrives, the air becomes fragrant with blossoms, inviting everyone into a relaxing and lively space. Mike takes great pride in his work. It is not merely a hobby or a profession. It is an indispensable part of his life. Each time he gazes upon his blooming flowers, he feels the rhythm of nature intertwining with his heart. Despite being busy with work, Mike always finds time to tend to his garden, which serves both as a means of relaxation and a way to express his love for the world around him. However, with the arrival of spring comes a wave of anxiety, especially with Mary, the president of the Homeowners Association, HOA, moving into the neighborhood. Mary is known for her strict demeanor and rigid regulations aimed at maintaining order in the community. She often appears with a stern look, making the neighbors feel pressured whenever they wish to express creativity in their projects. Upon their first meeting, Mary is friendly and open. However, it is not long before, having gained power, she begins to show her true colors. Mary's strict regulations act like walls, creating a heavy atmosphere in this once peaceful neighborhood. Mike, with his enthusiasm and love for gardening, feels suffocated by the rules imposed by Mary. As Mike prepares for the flower exhibition, an event he has eagerly anticipated for the entire year, Mary begins her relentless complaints. She alleges that the noise from Mike's gardening equipment is disruptive, and that the fragrance from his flower pots is not universally appreciated. For Mike, these complaints strike like a blow to his confidence and passion. He cannot comprehend why Mary would act this way when the flowers merely seek to bring beauty to life. Mike's life gradually becomes more stressful as Mary escalates her actions. She opts for an extreme approach by hiring a company to retrieve Mike's gardening tools. This action not only creates a crisis for Mike, but also constitutes a grave violation of HOA regulations. A hardworking gardener, passionate about his craft, suddenly finds himself a victim of a ruthless power play. As the community begins to buzz about Mary's actions and the injustice Mike endures, the authorities start to take notice. First comes Alex, the agricultural inspector, assigned to investigate the situation. Alex is a nature enthusiast and has a background in gardening, allowing him to deeply understand Mike's feelings. During his investigation, Alex not only recognizes the absurdity of Mary's actions, but also senses Mike's suffering and humiliation. Alex decides to stand up for Mike's rights. He cannot remain idle while a passionate individual is stripped of his labor and faith simply due to someone else's decision. Throughout the investigative process, Alex uncovers ample evidence proving that Mary has severely overstepped her authority. When Mary faces the repercussions of her actions, from sanctions imposed by the government to the community's sudden backlash against her, she gradually realizes that she cannot act without conscience and expect everyone to remain silent and obedient forever. The pressure from the public and the costs she incurs due to her mistakes begin to affect her psyche, causing Mary to feel anxious and reconsider her behavior. Where will this battle lead? Who will ultimately triumph in this struggle not just over a flower garden, but for justice and fairness in the relationships within this small community? This question will gradually be clarified as events unfold. The story of Mike and Mary promises not just a conflict between two individuals, but a battle of principles, courage, and love among people. Spring is here, and gentle breezes sweep through the rows of trees, carrying the fragrant beauty wafting from the blooming gardens of the neighbors. Mike, the dedicated gardener, has devoted considerable time and effort to nurturing his flower garden. Each pot, each stem, is lovingly tended to with care and passion. For Mike, gardening is not merely a hobby, it is an integral part of his life, bringing him a sense of tranquility and endless joy. However, Mike's simple dream was disrupted when Mary, the president of the HOA, began to interfere in his vibrant life. Initially, she approached him with a friendly demeanor, but it soon became clear that her position revealed her a difficult and overly strict nature. Alongside the stringent regulations of the HOA, Mary began to complain about the noise from the gardening equipment, as well as the scent of the flowers Mike cared for. The mere idea of him maintaining his garden had become a significant inconvenience in her eyes. Mike felt bewildered by these unreasonable complaints. He could not comprehend how the simplest of actions had escalated into a source of conflict. In Mike's mind, gardening was not just a pastime, but a way to connect with nature and the community. Yet, this perspective seemed to be one that Mary could not share. As tensions escalated, Mary decided to take more decisive action. She hired a company to confiscate Mike's gardening tools without his consent. This action not only caused chaos but also violated the HOA's regulations in the eyes of the residents. This was truly unacceptable. Mike not only lost his gardening tools but also felt as if he were being driven away from his passion, something he had invested so much love in. Intervention from authorities became necessary as the situation escalated. Agricultural inspectors and police were brought in to investigate the matter. Alex, an honest and fair agricultural inspector, was the first to discover that Mary had overstepped her bounds. He stood up to defend Mike's rights and freedoms, emphasizing that gardening was a right for every resident. The investigation not only shed light on the truth, but also led to Mary facing various penalties. She was required to compensate for the damages she caused and was expelled from HOA activities. This disadvantage left Mary feeling isolated and insecure. In response from the community, many residents rallied to support Mike, contributing to the defense of his legitimate rights. They saw Mary as an abuser of power, not just towards Mike but towards them all. Despite Mary's efforts to undermine Mike, community support empowered him. The residents even organized a grand flower exhibition that coincided with the timing of Mary's investigation. Under the brilliant sunlight, the flowers cultivated by Mike were showcased, drawing attention and support from everyone present. George, another resident and the HOA's chairperson, recognized the injustice in Mary's behavior. He decided to stand up as a mediator, but soon realized that Mary's difficult and myopic approach had to be stopped. He pursued not only his personal feelings, but also acknowledged his responsibility to uphold fairness within the community. On social media, the story of the battle between Mike and Mary quickly spread, becoming a hot topic in the area. Residents began to share their own stories about the troubles Mary caused, and this reality only deepened the support for Mike. They spoke of how Mary had harassed them and how she chose to exploit her position to control the lives of her neighbors. Each shared word made Mary feel more isolated and separated than ever before. The mounting pressure eventually compelled Mary to resign from her position as HOA president. Her departure was not merely an ending, but also a new beginning for the community. Mike's neighbors came together to create a harmonious environment where everyone could freely express their passions without fear of control or criticism. Mike became a symbol of the strength of unity. He not only regained his love and enthusiasm for tending to flowers, but also encouraged everyone in the community to engage in bonding activities. No longer fragmented pieces, they now stood as one front, spreading love and sharing strength with each other. The story of Mike and Mary concludes with a profound lesson about resilience, the spirit of solidarity, and how the human heart can overcome any obstacle. Through such challenges, the Portland community was reminded that true power lies in connection and humanity, not in unjust regulations or rules. Mary, Upon realizing that Mike had no intention of stopping his passion for gardening, began to take more extreme actions. She did not merely send requests through letters or meet directly to persuade him. She made a bold decision, hiring a company to retrieve Mike's gardening tools. This act not only demonstrated a lack of respect for the effort he had invested in creating his garden, but it also violated the rules set forth by the Homeowners Association (HOA). The incident caused by Mary quickly became the center of attention in the community. Other residents began to feel anxious, not only due to Mary's actions, but also because of what this could mean for the personal freedoms of everyone in the area. The flowers and plants that Mike had tended to for months brought him joy and enhanced the beauty of the neighborhood. Mary's interference not only hurt Mike, but also instilled a sense of unease among the other neighbors. At the same time, Mike felt confused and lost his confidence. He was a man who spent much of his time in the garden, seeking peace in every gentle touch of the soil and in the sense of the blooming flowers. For the first time in his life, he felt unjust pressure from someone he had previously regarded as a friendly neighbor. At this moment, his worries about preparing for his flower exhibition grew heavier. Mary had never stopped believing she had power and control. The more she advanced her actions, the more she proved that she cared little for respecting the rights of others. Undeniably, she turned herself into a harasser, ready to undermine everything Mike had worked to build. Furthermore, it seemed Mary did not understand that support from the community would not stand idly by in such circumstances. As tensions began to rise, authorities could not remain complacent. Agricultural Inspector Alex, a veteran in the field who always sided with the residents, was summoned to investigate the matter. He visited Mike's garden, feeling the vibrant life of the blooming flowers and admiring the dew still resting on the petals as sunlight shone down. Alex quickly recognized that Mary had overstepped her boundaries by deliberately troubling a neighbor for personal reasons. Meetings between Mike, Alex, and other officials took place. Mike clearly articulated what he had experienced and the negative emotions that Mary had instilled in him and the community. Alex, as a mediator, listened and felt compelled to protect the rights of residents like Mike. He emphasized that everyone has the right to pursue their passions as long as they do not encroach upon others. As these events began to unfold, Mary started to feel the pressure. Her actions were criticized not only by Mike, but also by many other residents in the area. Mary gradually came to realize that no one could stand alone in this fight, and her own authoritarianism had isolated her. The neighbors with whom she once took pride in having a friendly relationship suddenly turned their backs on her, striking a hard blow to the pride she had nurtured for so long. Rather than listening, Mary continued to deny and could not accept her defeat. She decided to falsely accuse Mike of unfounded allegations, when in fact it was she who had been causing trouble. This incited a wave of outrage within the community, where people began to share stories of how Mary had harassed them over the years. They united in support of Mike, a simple man who loved gardening purely out of passion. The battle was not only between Mary and Mike, it had evolved into a clash of ideologies, a clear delineation between tyranny and love. Ultimately, the community decided not only to protect Mike, but also to stand against Mary, overwhelming her ambitions with the strength of unity and courage. Mary lost her position, and over time, she became not just a difficult person, but a symbol of what authoritarianism could bring to a community. This event became a significant lesson for everyone. When someone wields power while forgetting their responsibilities, that is when the community must rise to protect the humanitarian values and the best things they have built together. Mike was not just a gardener. He became a symbol of resilience and the strength of collective spirit in a modern society, where individual power truly shines only when it is intertwined with irreplaceable values. While the flowers showcased their vibrant colors during the warm, sunny days of spring, Mike stood silently by his garden, feeling each gentle breeze that swept through the pots of colorful blooms, ranging from roses to orchids, were the result of months of dedication and hard work he had invested. But that joy was quickly overshadowed by the silent undertones of an unwanted battle. Mary, the HOA president, who Mike had once thought of as a friendly neighbor, now posed a threat to his entire gardening endeavor. Mary was not merely someone who liked to wield power. She embodied a tyranny that could only manifest in those lacking empathy. Her complaints targeted not only the noise from gardening equipment, but also tore at the passionate soul of Mike. She even used the seemingly harmless regulations of the HOA to justify her actions, applying pressure from the rules like a sharp blade, cutting through his joy and creativity. Mary's onslaught didn't stop at mere complaints. She decided to go further by hiring a landscaping company to reclaim Mike's tools, an act that created chaos not only for him, but for the entire neighborhood. This action not only violated HOA regulations, but also stripped away the freedom of a genuine gardener. Mike, who had devoted so much time and passion to his garden, now found himself suspended from the very activities he loved. Each time he saw the timid, neglected flower pots, his heart ached as the officials began appearing at various homes, from agricultural inspectors to the police. Mike felt as though he were in the middle of a tragic film. He constantly questioned whether anyone would stand by his side. Alex, the agricultural inspector, with his insightful perspective, quickly realized that Mary was not merely a complainer. She had overstepped her boundaries of power, hurting not only Mike but also infringing on the rights of other residents in the neighborhood. Alex became the voice of justice in this battle. He was recognized not only for his expertise but also for his empathy towards Mike, who was struggling under Mary's harshness while trying to maintain his love for gardening. When Alex issued a report proving that Mary had acted improperly and violated HOA regulations, Mike felt as though he had awakened from a terrible dream. Hope returned, and he realized he was not alone in this fight. However, Mary was not one to accept defeat easily. A proud woman, now witnessing her power waver, she decided to strike back once more. Mary filed a lawsuit against Mike, claiming he had disturbed the neighbors with noise from his gardening equipment and the unwanted odors from his flower pots. These allegations were completely unfounded and lacked evidence, but Mary aimed to prolong the conflict by drawing attention back to herself. The conflict between Mike and Mary became the focal point of the entire neighborhood. People began to follow this story, and it was not only Mike who felt a sense of injustice. The whole community felt it too. The residents of the HOA saw clearly the abuse of power on Mary's part. They could not sit idle and witness the discrimination Mike was enduring. What had once been quiet HOA meetings transformed into heated discussions, where residents stood up to oppose Mary and defend Mike. The battle was not just about Mike and Mary, but also about ideals, power, and responsibility. Who has the right to infringe upon another's passion? Debates erupted on social media, isolating Mary even further. Friends who once considered her a difficult yet respectable person gradually lost faith in her actions. The emergence of Alex and the community, those who stood up for justice, truly brought light to this grim tale. While Mary attempted to justify her actions, Mike transformed into a model of resilience, a spiritual leader for those feeling oppressed. Each individual shared a love for nature, and every time they visited Mike's garden, they sensed the harmony, vitality, and love radiating from the flowers he nurtured. From tears and injustice arose a small revolution. Mike was not just a gardener, he became a symbol of hope and community strength. His efforts brought victory not only for himself, but also empowered those longing to rise against oppression and injustice within their community. Mary always considered herself to be a person of authority, a president of the HOA with decisions that held binding power, yet not always just. After her coercive actions and violations of Mike's rights were brought to light, she inevitably had to face the consequences. In an emergency meeting of the HOA board, the atmosphere was suffocatingly tense. Eyes filled with indignation and disappointment were directed at Mary. They no longer saw her as a leader, but as someone who had abused the power she possessed. The criticisms rang out like an endless melody, coming from residents who once respected her. Mary could not sit comfortably amidst the taunts and demands for fairness from the residents surrounding her. "You have no right to stop me from tending to my garden," Mike stated, his voice firm and resolute. This made Mary flush with anger, and she could not accept that an ordinary man could stand firm against the pressures she exerted. As the situation deteriorated, the inspection team began their work. They initiated an investigation into Mary's complaints and soon realized that she had repeatedly misused her power to harass Mike. Alex, the generous agricultural inspector, was the first to speak out. "I clearly see the injustice in the way Mary has treated you. The rules she enforced are not only legally flawed, but also lack humanity." This response from Alex came as a shock to Mary. She could not imagine that someone would dare to stand up and speak the truth. Her impatience gradually transformed into fear. The winds began to shift, and Mary sensed this change as the meetings became a space for exposure, where the true nature of her character was laid bare. Shortly after, Mary received a notice from the local authorities, demanding that she reimburse all expenses incurred for the company she had hired to harass Mike. A wave of disappointment washed over her the moment she received the notification, and soon after, she was ousted from HOA activities. It felt as if she had just fallen from a great height into a murky abyss. With troubles piling up, negative thoughts began to infiltrate Mary's mind. Once proud of her role, she had now become an outcast. She had no friends, no support, and people began to avoid her like the plague. This left her in a state of constant anxiety. On the streets where she lived, conversations only revolved around her wrongdoings, regrets about having once trusted her echoing like an unending nightmare. While Mary searched for ways to salvage her situation, Mike emerged as a symbol of the fight for justice within the community. Mike did not wait for pity from others. Instead, he rose above the pain to collaborate with other residents in restoring order and bringing peace back to the neighborhood. With the help of fellow residents, Mike began preparations for the long-anticipated flower exhibition. He spent months planning, organizing meetings with each resident on how to arrange, decorate, and encourage participation. Vibrant, colorful flower pots combined harmoniously in the warm space, creating a perfect picture among the pieces of the community. Meanwhile, Mary held a small workshop in an attempt to salvage her remaining reputation, but the results were entirely contrary to her expectations. Criticism and testimony from residents once again made her hear the outcry she had created. No one could trust her promises anymore, as they had seen a picture exposed in reality, devoid of any hues other than arrogance and oppression. Feelings of loneliness, helplessness, and failure overwhelmed Mary. She realized that people needed sincerity, not dictatorship. Their perspectives had transcended personal schemes or motives. They aspired for a stronger, more united community. This made her feel as if the veneer of power had vanished, dissolved in the light of truth. Ultimately, Mary recognized that her difficult decisions and unjust judgments had led to unwanted outcomes. As the walls that surrounded her crumbled, she was compelled to find a different path. It was time she left, to step out of the shadows and let another blossom. Mary's disappearance marked a new beginning for the community. Her short-sighted actions created a painful yet valuable lesson about standing up for what is right. A place in the hearts of residents was not merely a position. It had to be built upon respect and deep-rooted values of the community. As Mary left the neighborhood, everything became lighter and fresher. Mike, in his role as a spiritual guide, continually encouraged everyone to care for the gardens, not just as a living condition but as a symbol of collaboration and shared values they had built together. Thus, Mike and the other residents had the opportunity to convey messages of patience and expansive love in life, and so, their story did not merely close a chapter, but opened many new doors, where each resident became a part of the larger picture, where everyone blossomed together, and friendships were nurtured through every bloom. Mary, unwilling to accept defeat in this battle, decided to sue Mike with a series of baseless accusations. Although her motivations stemmed from her irritation with Mike's gardening activities, Mary transformed it into a legal battle aimed at restoring her personal reputation and her position on the HOA board. The pressure from public opinion and relentless criticism made her feel it was necessary to bring Mike into the legal spotlight. Meanwhile, the HOA community, which regarded Mike as a friend and a devoted neighbor passionate about gardening, had witnessed his tireless efforts to create a beautiful green space for the neighborhood, complete with the blooming flowers he tended to daily. Thus, when they learned of Mary's decision to sue Mike, their response was unmistakable. The residents did not simply stand by, they began rallying around Mike. Having witnessed the disputes outside Mike's garden, Alex, an agricultural inspector, quickly took action. He could not remain idle while Mary, with the arrogance of a HOA leader, was abusing her power. Alex decided to be not just a witness in the lawsuit, but also an advocate for Mike, whom he felt deserved justice. In court, Mary presented a statement filled with sensational accusations, while Mike and his supporting team brought forth compelling evidence of his involvement in the community. Videos depicting Mike caring for his garden and the blooming flowers he nurtured touched the hearts of many. In fact, the neighborhood residents quickly became willing witnesses, ready to stand up and support Mike. Faced with the overwhelming number of Mike's supporters, Mary began to feel unnerved. Social media accounts exploded with tales of the injustices she had inflicted, as numerous residents recounted instances of Mary making it difficult for them to pursue their hobbies and interests. "Must we live in fear?" Every time we engage in our hobbies, one resident posted online, prompting a flurry of agreeing comments. Under this pressure, Mary became increasingly frantic, not only in the courtroom but also in the public sphere. The situation worsened when some residents decided to organize a small protest to urge the authorities to reconsider the HOA regulations imposed by Mary. From personal criticisms to denouncements of the rules she had established, Mary's voice within the community was rapidly diminishing. Conversely, Mike became a symbol of the struggle for personal and community rights. Photos and stories of his efforts spread across social media, and from his small garden, Mike gradually emerged as a hero in the eyes of many. As his reputation grew, investors in the community began to show interest in supporting charitable activities, culminating in the flower exhibition he had long dreamed of. On the day of the trial, hundreds of residents stood by Mike's side, all carrying a powerful message that they stood with him in this fight. Mary stood isolated, with no one in the community supporting her any longer. The regulations she had once enforced were now a haunting memory for many, and they were no longer afraid. They were ready to stand up against the pressures and dominance that Mary had created. Ultimately, the reason Mary faced consequences was the absurdity of her allegations. Unable to provide convincing evidence, the community's pushback, along with powerful speeches from Alex, helped Mike reclaim the reputation and respect he rightfully deserved. Conversely, Mary not only faced social condemnation but also lost the leadership role she had manipulated with tyranny. The legal battle was not only a test of wits but also a contest of politics and power within this small Portland community. In the end, Mary had to confront the consequences of her own making. Her actions affected not only Mike but all the residents of the neighborhood. Together, they stood up and proved that even when oppressed and in fear, solidarity, humanity, and mutual support could triumph over all obstacles. In the tense backdrop between Mike and Mary, stories of the difficulties that Mary had caused for the residents of that small garden began to spread widely. The image of Mary, a woman serving as the HOA president with almost absolute power, started to loom like a ghost in the minds of the residents. Fears regarding her interference in their daily lives became a common topic of conversation along fence lines, at BBQ parties, and even while waiting in line at the supermarket. However, the admiration for Mike grew stronger. Neighbors, who had previously been hesitant to express their opinions, began to share their own stories. Lisa, a woman living near Mary's house, told Mike that she had once been complained about by Mary for placing a simple flower pot on her front porch. Really? It was just a flower pot, but Mary called me and said it ruined the neighborhood's aesthetics, Lisa said wearily. Her story was listened to and acknowledged, turning Mike into a symbol of resistance. Moreover, when Alex, the agricultural inspector, spoke up in defense of Mike, the situation truly began to change. Alex was a beloved and trusted figure in the community. His presence not only empowered Mike, but also served as a clear indicator that local authorities had started to get involved. Alex's statement regarding the rights of residents like Mike made the community feel they were not alone. We cannot allow an individual to abuse their power to make life difficult for other residents, Alex declared at a large HOA meeting. This statement elicited applause and enthusiastic support from the audience. As the flower exhibition day approached, Mike poured his heart into every detail. He wanted not only to organize a flower exhibition but also to create a space where people could come together, interact, and share their passion for nature. The garden became a gathering place for the seeds of hope that Mike had sown in the hearts of the community. The area around his house was quickly adorned with vibrant colors. Fragrant flower pots and brilliantly colored plants filled the pathways. People from all over the community began to participate, personally preparing agricultural products, from cupcakes to fruit jams. To contribute to the event, people began to share their feelings about Mary in conversations. But rather than being negative, they turned it into motivation to strengthen community bonds. They were inspired by Mike, who was determined not to let the difficult person thwart his passion. In the hearts of everyone, faith in the goodness of people and the strength of solidarity began to grow. As the day of the exhibition drew nearer, excitement filled the air. The image of Mike standing beside the blossoming flower pots, with a bright smile, became a symbol of hope for the entire community. He not only intended to showcase beautiful flowers but also to invite everyone to come together to create a meaningful festival, where everyone had a voice and was respected. The festival day arrived, and a crowd came from all directions, not just from the neighborhood but also enthusiasts from nearby areas. The atmosphere was filled with festive joy, with applause and laughter mingling with the sounds of cheerful music playing from loudspeakers. Mike looked around and felt the power of humanity, unity, and love for nature igniting in every gaze, every smile. Above all, a struggle not just for himself, but for the entire community had touched the hearts of every participant. As the event unfolded, residents came not only to admire the flower pots, but also to partake in activities such as baking contests, flower planting, and folk games, creating an enjoyable space for interaction. In that moment, Mary began to feel the isolation. She decided not to participate, but the cost of her fear and difficult nature became glaringly obvious. The image of a vibrant, happy community enjoying the fruits of their labor dispelled all the tension that Mary had previously caused. Mary could not bear the living testimony to the power of unity and love that she had always tried to undermine. Every effort of hers had become meaningless in the context of a colorful life that Mike had restored for every resident of the neighborhood. Life had returned to full of good things, and Mary was left only in distant memories. Indeed, Mike had become a vibrant symbol of hope and strength in the battle against seemingly insurmountable difficulties. The blooming pots in the garden were not only the result of meticulous care, but also a testament to a united community, always ready to stand up against injustice. This story would forever remain a beautiful memory in the hearts of everyone, illustrating that love and solidarity can overcome any challenge. In the context of the escalating tension between Mike and Mary, George, a middle-aged resident and the chairperson of the HOA, decided to step in as a mediator. He was respected by many in the neighborhood for his calm demeanor and insightful contributions during HOA meetings. At this moment, George observed the growing tension among the neighbors, and he felt a responsibility to restore peace within the community. When George approached Mary, he found her sitting alone in the HOA office, looking tired and unhappy. He understood that her rigidity and difficult attitude were not merely signs of strictness regarding rules, but also reflected deep-seated insecurities. George initiated the conversation by suggesting that Mary share her feelings about what was happening in the neighborhood. "Mary, I know that you want our living environment to be maintained as well as possible," George gently said. "However, sometimes rigidity can lead to misunderstandings and unnecessary conflicts." Mary, with her strong character, responded defensively. "I just want everyone to follow the rules. No one has the right to disrupt what has been established for the common good." George attempted to explain the importance of flexibility and adaptability in community management. He recognized that Mary was under a lot of pressure from the residents and imposed high standards on herself. However, rigidity was not the way to resolve issues. Without understanding and negotiation, we will never find a good solution for everyone. George emphasized, "Mike is not a disruptor. He is trying to make the community better. Try to put yourself in his shoes." Mary began to feel some sympathy, but was still not completely persuaded. She had always been concerned about maintaining the image and standards of the neighborhood. George cited an example of a prior dispute that had occurred in the area, and how collaboration had helped everyone find a solution. "Remember, we live here not just to supervise each other, but also to support one another." Eventually, George proposed that they meet with Mike together, creating an opportunity for both sides to express themselves openly and find common ground. Although Mary was still hesitant, the respect George showed her, along with his calm approach, encouraged her to consider opening up. The next day, the meeting between Mary, Mike, and George took place. The tension was palpable when Mike entered. He saw Mary sitting there and sensed that this meeting could either yield something positive or further exacerbate the discomfort. But George was there, suggesting that both sides should put themselves in each other's positions. As George started the conversation, he allowed Mike and Mary to express their thoughts and feelings. Mike spoke about the passion and effort he had invested in his garden, and how he wanted to share the joy of that with the whole neighborhood during the flower exhibition. Mary slowly shared her concerns about certain activities possibly leading to chaos within the neighborhood. And although she maintained a strong stance on the necessity of adhering to rules, she gradually began to realize that flexibility was also needed. George skillfully steered the conversation towards feasible solutions. Perhaps we may need a new regulation for activities like exhibitions, he suggested. Certain restrictions, but still allowing everyone to express their creativity. Both individuals nodded in agreement as they recognized that rather than rigidly imposing rules, they should collaboratively build a new set of standards that everyone would respect. This discussion not only helped Mike and Mary empathize with each other, but also created a new foundation for collaboration. From that point onwards, they decided to hold a broader community meeting to gather opinions from all residents on how to develop each household's garden harmoniously and effectively without losing the neighborhood's inherent character. George succeeded not only in reconciling Mike and Mary, but also in bridging the gap among the neighborhood residents. Their collaboration made everyone realize that instead of confronting one another, working together and advocating for the common good would create strength and prosperity for the entire community. Thanks to this mediation, Mary gradually learned to see things from a different perspective. She began participating in community activities, attending meetings, and, above all, realized that strict control was not the best solution. George not only helped build a bridge between them, but also ignited in Mary a spirit of openness and more positive thinking. By the end of the meeting, the atmosphere had significantly improved. Everyone observed that sometimes conflicts only need a peaceful voice and a willingness to understand. Mary felt lighter, and together with Mike, they began to build a brighter future for their neighborhood. The connection and community spirit had truly been restored, creating a new picture of a warmer, peaceful melody in the hearts of the residents of Portland, in the context of the escalating tension between Mike and Mary. The community's support for Mike has become a crucial factor in this conflict. As news of Mary's behavior spreads, many residents in the area feel compelled to speak out. They are not merely neighbors, but friends, sharing warm memories in the community. People begin reminiscing about joyful moments, bright summer days, and small gatherings among flowers and gardens. On social media, the hashtag Justice for Mike begins to appear. Residents, from elderly individuals to young people, unite in recounting their stories of the times Mary has made life difficult for them. Their voices go beyond mere criticism. They express empathy, sharing the emotions they have experienced due to the demanding requests and unsympathetic policies that Mary has imposed on the community. She didn't just make things difficult for Mike. One young resident writes, "She has hurt us, making us feel uncomfortable in our own homes." What stands out here is the unity of the community. No one wants to live in fear of a woman wielding her power. Many begin organizing gatherings and meetings in their gardens, where they can discuss, support each other, and plan for the flower exhibition that Mike intends to hold. This encouragement not only uplifts Mike's spirits, but also fosters a strong sense of community, where everyone feels heard and supported. Meanwhile, Mary sits alone in her home, feeling a creeping sense of loneliness. Her previous actions now only amplify her feelings of insecurity. Isolation grows as people gradually turn their backs on her. The glances no longer hold sympathy, but rather mockery and criticism, which Mary finds unbearable. Mary begins to realize that imposing control cannot sustain respect and unity within the community. In her solitary moments, she questions herself. Is this truly the way she wants to live and lead? Her spirit is overshadowed by sadness and regret. The image of a powerful HOA president is now just a memory, and she feels as though she has become a lonely figure in the very community she once took pride in. The spreading of stories about Mary's behavior underscores the undeniable strength of a united community. Through posts, videos, and comments on social media, people find a common voice. They not only challenge Mary's actions but also honor Mike as a symbol of resilience, a protector of the values that everyone strives to preserve in their neighborhood. This ideological battle is not solely about Mike or Mary. It has evolved into a conflict over the community's shared values, the courage to stand against injustice, and the realization that strength does not come from power, but from mutual support and human connection. Community members begin to understand that a garden is not made up merely of seeds and soil, but of love, connection, and trust, as Mary races against time, seeking ways to restore her image. The community stands more solidly than ever in its resolve to support Mike. As the gatherings become more frequent, the atmosphere in the area begins to warm. Community members start working together, creating new momentum for the flower exhibition that Mike has long dreamed of. Hands work in harmony to care for the flower pots. Smiles are shared, more vibrant than ever, affirming that preserving the true beauty of the garden is the responsibility of all, not just Mike. With a common goal, they create a perfect whole that they had never imagined before. They are not just organizing a flower exhibition, but also reaffirming their own strength. Mary, in the face of their tireless efforts, gradually comes to recognize an undeniable truth. The power she sought to maintain no longer has a place in a thriving community. And then, when the festival day arrives, everything comes alive like never before. Mike's image has become a symbol of unity, courage, and the determination to never give up. Residents, coming together, have turned the flower exhibition into not just an event, but a landmark of a new era for this community, where people fight together to protect and preserve the most beautiful values of humanity. As the community revives from what has transpired, Mary realizes the painful truth that she has lost the opportunity to be a part of that collective. The day she leaves marks the day when a new light truly begins to shine brightly in every street corner, among every tree, and in every flower pot. The unity has demonstrated that not only flowers need nurturing, but so do relationships, requiring enduring roots to grow high and strong. I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that. After Mary left the area, a wave of rejuvenation swept through the community. The flowers, once a source of joy for Mike, now bloomed even more vibrantly, as if celebrating the liberation from the long-standing pressure that had weighed them down. The residents of the neighborhood, who had often had to stealthily avoid Mary, now felt free to express their passion for plants and flowers that they had kept hidden for so long. Mike, taking on the role of the leader of the community's newfound spirit, skillfully fostered a warm and friendly atmosphere. He organized gardening workshops, shared experiences on growing flowers and ornamental plants, and encouraged everyone to participate in collective activities. Not only did they learn how to care for plants, but they also forged close friendships, and the colors from their gardens began to spread throughout the neighborhood. Every weekend, the neighborhood burst forth with blooming flowers, performances, and small stalls where residents mingled and exchanged plant cuttings. It felt as though the entire area had been revitalized with new life, joy, and enthusiasm. Strolling through the neighborhood became a delightful experience, where you could see vibrant flower trays and smell the fragrances wafting from the neighbors' gardens. The community also began organizing regular events to celebrate the natural beauty of the area. Flower festivals started to emerge, becoming an ideal gathering place for people and fostering a positive environment for families to interact. Children were captivated by exploring nature, while their grandparents breathed a sigh of relief, no longer having to worry about the constraints of a small patch of land due to someone's exacting nature. The arrival of George, who had once been a leader in the HOA, made everything even better. He was a respected figure who had dedicated many years to the community. With his experience, he helped establish rules for fair play and mutual respect, creating an environment where everyone felt welcomed. George not only organized gatherings but also encouraged community members to bring forth fresh ideas. He listened to residents' opinions on how to make the best use of land, and every morning, he fueled dreams of preserving and developing the green space of the neighborhood. The Green Garden Plan was born, where each resident could plant and care for greenery in a shared space. It was not only a way to protect the environment, but also a significant step toward restoring a sense of community. This place became a new home for those who loved plants, enabling them to connect, share knowledge, and inspire one another. Every evening, under the setting sun, laughter echoed through the small alleys. Children played. Adults tended to plants, and Mike's little house often served as a stopover for sweet treats and a refreshing drink after a long day's work. No one in the community forgot the hardships they had faced, but now they had learned to unite more than before. Their love for nature had brought them closer together and provided them with strength to overcome any obstacles. The lessons of resilience and solidarity were not just embedded in each individual, but had become part of the shared culture. Mike was not only the one who brought color to the garden, but also the one who sparked love and compassion among people. With his simplicity, he had become a symbol of community strength. We may be different, but we all share a love for plants and nature. Mike often said whenever he had the chance, under Mike's leadership and George's support, the community stepped into a new phase filled with hope. They not only escaped the shadow of exacting nature, but also looked toward a brighter future. Their love for flowers and plants connected individuals, creating a strong and united community. The journey was not just about planting flowers. It had opened a new chapter in the lives of each resident. Regardless of who they were, anyone could affirm that the joy nature brings, along with solidarity and camaraderie, would create a better living space. The story of Mike and Mary, though beginning with confrontation, ultimately led to a wondrous harmony. Although Mary might have vanished, her legacy was not just the challenges but also the motivation for everyone to continue preserving and promoting the values of the community. Every leaf and every flower symbolized rejuvenation, an unwavering love for nature, and the hope that everything would be better through genuine and profound connections among people. The story of Mike and Mary is not merely a conflict between two neighbors with contrasting personalities, but rather a profound lesson about the strength of unity and resilience in life. Through the events in the battle between power and humanity, we realize that in any community, true strength does not lie in the position or title an individual holds, but in the connections, compassion, and mutual support of each member in society. When Mary appeared as a neighbor promising to bring positive change to the area, no one expected her to become the cause of disruption to the existing harmony. Her imposition and strict demands unsettled Mike, a true gardener. However, Mike's persistence and unwavering effort led him to discover his inner strength as well as the support of the community. Mike's journey was not just about protecting his flower garden, but also a fight for noble values rooted in friendship, neighborliness, and love for nature. As Mary found herself in dire straits, facing the consequences of her actions served not only as a lesson for her, but also as a wake-up call for many others. The image of a powerful woman, yet isolated due to opposition from the community, became a clear testament to the futility of relying solely on personal power to control or impose upon others. true strength resides in the values that each individual brings to the community. George, the HOA leader, plays an important role in this narrative. He acted as a neutral voice, but ultimately, when confronted with the injustices that Mary brought, he sided with the truth. Individuals like George are crucial in maintaining fairness and peace within the community. Every resident has the right to voice their opinion and protect their home, as they recognize that unity possesses far greater strength than individual independence. Mike not only overcame adversity but also became a symbol of hope and solidarity for all. The success of the flower exhibition was not merely a personal victory, but a celebration of friendship, support, and love among neighbors. It can be said that within each flower planted lies a story of unity and the strength of community spirit. Even after Mary departed, the aftermath of her actions lingered as a lasting lesson in the minds of every resident. Society needs not only powerful managers but also individuals who can listen, empathize, and handle differences wisely. The lesson from this story reminds us that resilience does not stem only from personal strength, but also from our ability to stand together, protect one another, and collaboratively build a stronger community. This principle applies not only in the context of minor disagreements, but can also be extended to larger societal issues. When Mike encouraged everyone in the community to collectively care for their gardens, it was not purely about preserving their living environment, but also a means to bring people closer together. Caring for trees and flowers became part of daily life, creating space for conversations, friendships, and sharing. At the same time, it encouraged everyone to appreciate the simple things in life. As summer approached, Mike decided to organize a tree planting festival involving all residents to impart a deeper meaning to the community. Throughout the festival, there were not only tree planting activities but also interactions and experience sharing among residents. Fostering closer ties and intimacy, neighbors learned from one another while creating memorable experiences. Ultimately, the story of Mike and Mary affirmed the reality that strength does not reside in power, but in humanity, in the connections, and in the sincerity between people. This is the powerful message the community gleaned. Nothing is more precious than unity, love, and the bonds that connect us. In this life, let us remember that each of us can be a part of building something beautiful. Whether it is small or great, as long as we share a common direction, all difficulties will become lighter, and each community will be a place filled with love and tranquility, where every flower can bask in the warmth of human kindness.